Hey, everybody, welcome back to Think Mindset Live with my good buddy Randy Denha and our guest today, David Wachs, who is the CEO of Handwritten, handwritten.com, handwriting services for the masses. David, we met a couple weeks ago. You were on the podcast, and I thought you would be great for Randy and I to kind of continue the conversation because, and I'll speak for Randy for a minute. I think we both believe that, the handwritten note is a lost art. But sometimes you just don't have the time. And so why not, like many things in the world today, delegate and find a virtual partner. And so I want to start off by talking about just the art of the handwritten notes and how you kind of, service clients to really kind of help connect them to their clients or prospects or however they're utilizing them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the mission statement of our company is to really increase the adoption of handwritten notes in general, not what we do. We just do it if you don't have the time to do it yourself. But the way we do this is by making sending handwritten notes as easy as sending email, or even easier than sending email, because we can totally automate the whole thing. So people visit our website, they use our iPhone app or Android app, our Salesforce.com integration, our HubSpot integration, Zapier, soon to be Shopify integration, all these different ways to automate sending handwritten notes or just send them in a one-off fashion very quickly. So people use this a lot just for sending thank you notes. That's probably 95% of what we do, except around the holidays when it's all happy holiday notes. But we're really just here to help people express their gratitude to their customers, for being customers and for prospects, that type of thing. And it's what we find is that it increases customer retention, increases loyalty, creates more meeting bookings. It handwritten notes. There's a story. I don't know if I told it on your podcast, but we have one guy that's a piano tuner, and every year he's in your house tuning your piano, and then he doesn't see you for a year. He sends them a handwritten note after he tunes their piano. And then when he goes back a year later, he sees that handwritten note still sticking on their fridge. So, I mean, you're not going to get that with an email or a text message. So that's what we're really about, is creating those bonds that last.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really, that permanence, right? With a handwritten letter that you can go back, you can read, you can reread, and it evokes emotion. Just like in business where, the mindset of most entrepreneurs is go, 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 take care of the employees, have a great product, make sure the process is efficient. But what about the people outside of your company, the customer? And, as a lawyer, I won't write a handwritten letter, but I'll dictate a letter and I will sign it. Now, to me, it evokes responses, right? But a handwritten letter, as I, went through and looked at, what you created, I think is absolute mastery.
Yeah.
Because it's a lost art. They say that handwriting is an imprint of yourself on the page. And we need to create more permanence. So in your landscape, in your world, David, how do you get people to get off this and do this?
Well, we don't, because we're having them send their handwritten notes like this. But what we do on the other end is we move it from being a single sensory experience of, looking at a computer screen and reading a message to a multi-sensory, whether that's, the feel of the paper. We have people lick their fingers and try to rub the ink, and of course it runs. But I talked about this a little bit, I think, in the podcast too. In today's day and age, like I literally just took off my watch because my watch was beeping me. I'm sure it's my wife, but my watch is beeping, and I had to turn off Outlook and I turn off Slack and all that stuff because we're inundated constantly with messaging and notifications and, read me, respond to me. And when you send somebody a handwritten note, what it evokes is I took 5 minutes to sit down and spend time focused on you, because I can't just write one word of a handwritten note and then go answer 5 emails, come back and write another word. The note, it would look weird and it wouldn't get written. So when you send a handwritten note, what you're doing is you're carving out 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever it is, and that's more than people do nowadays. I have a client that's they're a healthcare brand or a beauty brand, and they say the closest thing they know of this is when you go into a meeting and everybody takes their cell phones and turns them off. It's that focus, that attention to the consumer, and people get it, and they really appreciate when you take that attention to do that, whether that's a printed letter that you sign or you take more time and do the actual handwritten note. It's that attention that people really crave. And what's interesting is some of our biggest clients right now are online brands versus in-store brands when we talk to retail. And you'd think the retailers would have the leg up because they have that one-to-one personal connection with the consumers, but the online brands are so good at automating it. And the in-store brands aren't as good as training their sales associates to take 5 minutes and tap out a note on their phone or whatever, that the online brands are actually creating deeper bonds with their customers than the in-store, which is kind of interesting.
You bring up a really good point about training, and training is so important. I'm reading this book right now. It's great. I highly recommend it. I'll be done today. It's called Predictable Revenue. It's a great book. Yeah.
I'm reading another book recommended by that author, The Hub. I don't know if you told me about it or what. I can't find it. It's by the guy that's the sales guy from HubSpot. And on the back of that book, they mention predictable revenue.
Oh, good. Tell me that. What's the name of that book? I'll read that one next. But my point is, one of the things they talk about is the importance of training. So you have these kind of archaic models that are becoming more archaic, even though they may seem current, and they're training their people or not training their people. And so how do you recommend people start changing the paradigm shift of training these brick and mortar type of, team people, employees, or so they start thinking more remotely. They start thinking, how to delegate. They start using technology that really helps them grow their business and scale it.
Yeah, I think the secret is making it easy. So to give an example, and again, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, one of our clients, and we don't mention a lot of clients' names because nobody wants to be known as not actually sending real handwritten notes, but one of our clients is a very high-end perfume brand and cologne brand. The stuff that, it's like $500 a bottle. And I walked into a department store prior to COVID with my wife and kids, and we saw that brand on the shelf. And I went over to it and I was talking with my wife about it, like, oh yeah, they're a client, blah, blah, blah. And at that time, the store rep came over and tried to sell me on the product. I said, oh, I'm not interested. I couldn't afford it, but they're a client. We send your handwritten notes for you. And the woman said, no, you don't. I'm supposed to send my own handwritten notes. And what I realized is the online sales we're handling the handwritten notes for. The in-store sales, the sales rep is supposed to do herself, not using our service, but sit down and write a handwritten note. And that's just too much to ask, I feel, for some of these people that, they're busy trying to get the next sale with the next guy or woman that comes in. Then they're busy trying to make sure their merchandising is all set up nicely. And then they're doing paperwork and inventory and everything else. To have them do handwritten notes on top of that, that's a pretty big ask. I mean, a lot of people, some very, very high-end luxury brands do it, but it's a big ask. So why not make it so simple where all they have to do is type in the address of the client in a system and have the rest of it automated? For another luxury brand, we do just that. Every time you buy one of their high-end leather purses or belts or shoes or whatever in store, you get a handwritten note from that store clerk listing the store name, your store rep, their phone number, saying, thank you so much for buying the belt or purse or whatever. And that whole note is automated through us. So, if you can set up your systems where it's simple, if you're using an automation platform, I think that's the way to go. We, at Handwritten, when we send handwritten notes, we automate it. So certain stages, we use Pipedrive as our CRM system, which is kind of like I'm not going to say it competes with Salesforce.com because I find it very different and quite frankly, more appropriate for the size of my organization. But when you get to a certain stage in a pipeline, a handwritten note automatically goes out. The sales rep doesn't have to do anything. And that's how I think the best way to do it is, because if you ask people to do one more step, they're either going to, begrudge it and do it poorly, or they're not going to do it at all. So, and I'd be curious what you think, what's in that predictable revenue book, if they have ideas on how to set up habits. There's another book right now that I'm on my reading list called Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, which talks about all that, about creating small, repeatable habits and how that can change your life or your work over the long term. And so there's probably better responses in that book. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to it yet. But
yeah, I think oftentimes people write because they want to say something, as opposed to writing because there's something we want you to know. So when you shared that example about the customer representative at the brick and mortar store, where he or she had to write their own letter, there's something he wants you to know is, I want to thank you for the customer experience. I want you to come back and be a repeat customer, right? Versus what we ordinarily do in our everyday via text, email, whatever other, websites we're using and apps. We're just in a hurry and a rush to move things along. There's really no investment, right? Mm-hmm. It's very hurried, it's quick, and it's a check and move on to the next one. How do we soften that? And it sounds like you're well on your way to doing that, but when somebody gives you their handwriting, and you mentioned somebody can, lick their thumb and you can cause that streak. I guess, what is that process, not just internally, but how is it, other than what we know, how is it felt by the end user, by the recipient?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. So if you're asking about if the end recipient knows it's a phony note, I'd say they don't even check, because they're so happy that somebody sent them anything. In this day and age, I think the average person receives like 2 pieces of handwritten mail a month. So, they're just thrilled to get anything. Can
I comment on that real quickly? Because I got one. So David sent me one. I had him on the podcast a couple weeks ago. And so what's interesting is like, here's the thank you note, right? Here's the writing. He references, a mutual friend, Gabe Karp, who we both know. Mm-hmm. And then, his everything. And then on the back, where most people would think, does it say Handwritten, a product of Handwritten.com? Yeah. It just says Red Wagon Holdings, so it makes it look like that's kind of the name of the software. So nowhere on it does it say the name of David's company in a promotional way.
Yeah.
And Joanna thought it was great, Randy. Joanna loved it.
I agree.
Yeah. So
yeah, we would never. That's another problem with our thing, is a lot of these brands, you could have viral aspect. You send somebody a card, on the back it says where it came from. We don't do it. We say Red Wagon just because when I was a little kid, I used to go up and down the street with a red wagon selling licorice nips or whatever. So that's why the thing is called Red Wagon. So in a way, we created we did create our own stationery brand in the process. And if you Google Red Wagon, it won't pop up Handwritten. So it's not like some circuitous route to Handwritten. We really want to keep that illusion real. The question is, if I were to show you that note and say, hey, Randy, what do you think about this note? You would probably say, oh, I read it. Thank you so much for your kind words. That was very thoughtful. If I said, hey, Randy, was that note written by a robot? Then everything else changes, right? Then you'll put it under a level of scrutiny or, whatever. But I would say, okay, let's say you do, you're some robot expert and you do realize it's written by a robot. Who cares? It's still a level of thoughtfulness that the next guy is not going to do. He's not going to take the time to find some service to send you a handwritten note when he'll probably just blast you an email or a text message. So that's kind of where my thought lies. It's funny. The only people that seem to really, really care are some realtors we have, and they don't care so much about the handwriting. They're most concerned about the return address or the postmark. All the notes have a return address of whatever you want, but the postmark, because we mail them with a real forever stamp, not like a pre-canceled stamp or something like that, the postmark says Arizona. So that's the one giveaway that that people, that's with our service. Nobody else seems to care about it. Just a few, a few of our realtor clients seem to really care, but that's not it.
But somebody still had to input the words, the thoughts, right? Somebody still had to do it. The robot's not going to do that.
Right, exactly. And just like, the way I think about it now is, and, depending on what political party you're on, move this thought experiment back 4 years. But for people that get a Christmas card from the president, whoever that president is, they know the president didn't sit down and write that, and sign that Christmas note for them. They know they didn't do that. That's some robot or something, but they still put it on their fridge. They still think it's, it's cool. So that's, if anybody really takes issue with it, it's like, well, I still took the time to enter the thought. And, getting back to your previous point about effectiveness and all that, we don't, yes, people send offer codes and they send exclusive deals and stuff like that with the handwritten notes. But when people say, what do you want to do with it? I say, just say thank you for being a client, or, we're thinking about you during these tough times or whatever. Don't look for that ROI. The retention and the loyalty will come, but just be a good person and say thank you for your business. And that's where most of our clients get that, and they see it as really just one more way to make a good impression with their clients. They're not trying to do some big, what's it called? Split test, ROI split test or anything like that. They're just, A/B test. They're just sending it to everybody saying, hey, thanks for your business. We had one client who was a major mattress brand, and they were including these really cool handwritten notes in every mattress box. There was one of these online where you buy the mattress online and it shows up at your door. And these really cool notes that they actually had their team members scrawl out on paper, and then our robots recreated the same note over and over again. So we're able to do this because we're not customizing the note. We're not saying, Dear Randall or Dear John. It's just, thanks so much for buying this mattress. And then below that was like a doodle. So some had like the moon and the stars. Some had people sleeping in bed with little thought bubbles of what they're dreaming about, like all sorts of doodles and all sorts of notes. And then they stopped. And I reached out to them because they're a very good client of ours. And I said, guys, why did you stop? And they said, well, we did that when we were a small company looking to create that personal touch. Now we're a big company. We don't think it's necessary. And I didn't know how to respond, quite frankly. I mean, when that's your logic, it's just, that's your logic. And I said, well, I think it's important to always have a personal touch, but they didn't care, and that was their thing. Now they're thinking of coming back to us because they kind of realized that was a silly thing to do. But it's just about creating that one-to-one communication when people are really craving that now more than ever.
Yeah, it's I can't help it. And when you share that story about the mattress company, style. We talk about investment, we talk about personal touch. But what about style? And when I use the term style, it's sort of a metaphor for, the style of the way we are in business, our mannerisms, but also style with respect to the font we use. Times New Roman, Arial, Calibri, Palatino Linotype.
Helvetica. You're forgetting Helvetica.
Right. I mean, what impact does style have in the process of evoking, either that buyer to consume your product or getting that grand gesture of a thank you? Does style have any impact?
Are you talking about like stationery and stuff?
So I kind of use that as a metaphor in business. I mean, our style, our style will be able to convey what we're doing, but what impact does style have in terms of the font, in terms of the way, if it's cursive, the angle? I mean, does that play a role at all in what Handwritten does?
I mean, we offer it. We sorry, on my the new mic I bought just for this the stream is acting up on me. We offer all that, but I'd say it's a broader thing of just having, the style of you, Randy, Randall, of just, being your own brand and being a guy that would send a handwritten note, whether actual handwritten or through a service like us. So, we offer embossed stationery to, major CEOs and stuff like that, where it's a thick embossed stationery that they write on, or we offer customized cards with your logo. And then, the handwriting style, we do have fancy and casual. We have fancy Jenna, casual David, dapper Will. We have all these different handwriting styles. We don't call them fonts, but you could think of them as fonts. We're adding new ones all the time. We just added, we typically add them based on handwriting styles of our salespeople or people that work at the company. It's funny, we're doing a big launch right now for a new service line we're offering to car dealerships. And my head of auto sales was asking me, he said, do you find one font working better than another? I said, no, let's test it. Let's see what we get back. So I can't really say for sure. I think you just want something that matches your, it shouldn't, honestly, I don't think it matters so much if it's, this font really converts or, that font really doesn't send a good impression. I think it's more what you identify with. And that's why we offer the ability for people to create their own too. But I like Tenacious Nick. That note I sent John was in Tenacious Nick. But that's just me. So, it's just whatever.
Yeah. Hey, I have a question. I just want to go back to kind of what the theme of a lot of what we're talking about today is, which is, being thankful and thanking people, right? And gratitude. Yeah. And I don't think that, there can never be enough thanks and gratitude in the world.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't know if you have any studies or thoughts, but, to me, it amazes me how many people don't say thank you. It amazes me how many people don't take a moment. I understand why, and just think about what they're grateful for. And so to me, this exercise of whether you're writing a handwritten note or texting it to someone, texting it to handwritten to actually do, it's almost like taking that meditative pause to remember what you're grateful for, who you're grateful for, to share and show some thanks. And so can you just kind of talk about just the power of gratitude and the power of a thank you?
Yeah, so I totally agree with you, John. There's a lot of studies, and I'm no guru or anything, but there's a lot of studies that being grateful is the secret to happiness. That the more you say thank you in your life, in a paper note, in a printed note, whatever, the more you think about what you're grateful for, the happier you're going to be. And I see that with myself personally. And it's something, my wife and I talk about is, just being more grateful for what we have, because I think all three of us here are probably pretty lucky, on that spectrum. So, I think there's a lot to be said just for connoting gratitude. I don't have too many studies about that in particular. I'm trying to think. I mean, the best one is the piano tuner where those notes stick.
Yeah.
But really, that's, I'm sure I could come back to you with some more thoughts on thanking. But that's really, why I do it is to make myself happier. It's totally selfish of me.
Yeah.
But I think beyond being thankful, it's also, another thing that people are really bad at these days, quite frankly, is taking ownership and feeling and saying, I'm sorry. And I've actually written about this for me, on Medium, is when you screw up in business, to own it. And whether that's sending a handwritten note to own it or calling the person on the other end and owning it, because the fact is, screw-ups happen. And so many people just, I think in this day and age of generation millennials, it's always somebody else's fault, or you didn't tell me the right thing to do, so I didn't do it. It's funny, my wife and I were launching a a product, and we were using one of like the Indiegogos of the world to launch a product, and we were using a PR firm. We thought the PR firm really botched it. And when we asked them about it, they just gave us, it was just excuses, and nobody owns anything anymore. And I think ownership of problems and apologizing as the first step to fixing that, to fixing that problem and fixing that relationship, and apologizing through a handwritten note or through whatever else goes a long way. Another example, which I might have shared or not, is we have a client that's a meal box company. So they send, actually a snack box company. So they send snacks to offices, and they find if they screw up your order, what they do is they obviously send you the right order. So it's, hey, more snacks, and you keep the old ones, which is awesome. But then they send a apology note saying, we're so sorry for sending you the wrong snacks. What they found is those apology notes actually, and the replacement snacks, actually drive greater loyalty than never screwing up at all. And therefore, they just start apologizing, sending the wrong snacks to everybody and sending apology notes. So,
that's a brilliant marketing right there.
Yeah,
they send the wrong thing in an apology note. That's awesome.
They take advantage of it, which is, but I think in general, being thankful for what you have, and then also owning up when you don't do something correct. And then, and that first step of owning up is apologizing and then fixing it. And really, as I like to talk about, over fixing it. So I think all that's important. This has nothing to do with handwritten notes, but in a prior life, I worked for a company, or I owned a company that did text messaging. One of our clients, that's how I know Gabe Karp, that guy you mentioned before. One of our clients was a spa. Spas around the United States, and we had these signs that say "text in for deals at the spa." And it was text to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when we sent out the signs to them, I think they asked us to print the signs, they asked us what to print on the signs. We told them what to print on the signs. They had it all printed up and put in every store. And then turned out what our account manager told them was wrong. So now they had signs in 50 stores around 50 spas around the United States that were all wrong and very costly to replace. So we could have handled this a few ways. We could have just said, I'm sorry. Or, we could have said nothing. We could have said, oh, no, you misheard us. And, you didn't understand what we meant, which is kind of the millennial approach. We could have apologized for it. We could have reimbursed them for the signs. But what we did was we sent 15 of our employees, we divided the map up, and we sent employees to every location with a new sign and a bag of goodies and an apology, and they all went and they personally apologized for this problem and brought new signs. And I think it was that process of, over delivering and over responding to an issue that really built huge loyalty for us in the long term with them. So just stuff like that. And that, again, has nothing to do with thank you, with handwritten notes. It's just about, being grateful for what you have, thanking your clients because you should be grateful for your clients, and trying to own up when you're not doing your best job.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that story. I think it's always good that people can learn from stories and lessons that are pulled from those stories. Quick speed round, David. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. One piece of wisdom you would give somebody, a young adult who's graduating college right now, the mindset that they should have.
Speed round. I'm sorry, man. That's a good question. I would say don't be afraid to adjust. I came out of school as a management consultant, and then your average career, I think, has your average life has 7 different careers, not 7 different jobs. So don't be afraid to adjust. And if what you end up doing great at has nothing to do with your education, so be it. And then also, if you do plan on starting a company, do it early, because life just gets harder and harder. And, then you have kids and a wife that, a demanding spouse and everything else. So not that spouses aren't great but you just have more responsibilities. So the sooner you can start on that entrepreneurial path, if that's something you want to do, the better.
Great.
What piece of advice would you give a younger David Wachs?
Hang in there. With the first company, I was really, just be, hang in there and be, what's the word I'm looking for? Be confident that you have what it takes to do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. So my first company was started after I got fired from the job before that. And I was kind of down in the dumps and broke. And, for me, a night on the town was going to Costco and getting the $1.50 hot dog and then walking around Costco until I fill up. I called that the entrepreneurial special. And it took years to get that company off the ground. In Recollect, it took a lot less time than it did for Handwritten, but it took years to get that company off the ground. And, people I talk to say, hey, Dave, stick with it. But, there's a lot of time you don't want to stick with something. So just be resolute. And if you have something, be willing to put the time in. Rome wasn't built in a day. And, I think the average startup takes something like 3 or 4 years to get off the ground. So, just know it's not going to be an overnight success usually, despite what you see in movies.
Right. It takes 3 years to be an overnight success on social and about 15 to 17 years to be an overnight success in business. There's a local company here called Saxy Construction. And in Detroit, they used to have a sign that said, if Rome was built in a day, we would have hired, that crew or something to
right.
So, well received. Well, David, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and where they can, get to handwritten.com.
Yeah, so it's Handwritten with a Y, HANDWRYTTEN.com. If you want to reach out to me, just email me, David@Handwritten. You can, if you want to sign up, use discount code podcast, PODCAST, for $5 in free credit. We just rolled out a subscription offering. If you plan on doing multiple notes every month, split up over the month, please check out those options. All the pricing and everything's at Handwritten. I'm also on Twitter, David B as in boy, Wachs, WACHS, or obviously LinkedIn. Would love to hear from you guys because it's always good to know that people listen to me blather. But yeah, that's kind of that's us.
All right, good. Well, I appreciate you taking time to bring back and talk about the lost art of a handwritten note. This was great. You gave some great stories, some great examples of companies and how they're utilizing it effectively, and the importance of gratitude and thanks. And so I can't thank you enough for taking your time. Randy, I will let you close it out.
Yeah, I agree. This is well received, David. I mean, it's definitely, you brought back the lost art of handwriting. I know they're not teaching cursive anymore, but I still write in cursive. Every now and then when I'm mad, it's print. But you've evidence that throwing crumbs into the water can return in loaves if you do it well and you do it right.
Yeah.
So, this is something I'm going to take away. I'm going to check out your website, and I look forward to being a customer. So thank you for being here today.
Nice meeting you, Randy. John, great seeing you again. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate being on your show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Randy, always fun. David, thanks very much. Great stuff.